particular idea. So what we're interested in is the spread of ideas, specifically outcome mapping in this case, and this is sort of the purpose of the research. And we're looking at indicators. We're looking for indicators beyond just bibliometrics. We're also looking to contribute to the methodological development for evaluators. I want to be able to introduce some tools that will be useful to evaluators. And just one brief example is this is the traffic from the IDRC website. We can see all of this data. We can conclude, it goes up during the week, and traffic goes up during the week and down on the weekends. Every week, it's very methodical. But with these tools, what it allows us to do is not worry about these average values. We can drop our data into buckets and look at specific segments of data so that we can draw more concise conclusions about what we're doing. And so really what I'm trying to do here is contribute some methodological tools for evaluators. And essentially this was an exploratory study at web analytics in this sense. Okay, so that's the purpose of this study. And before I jumped into the web analytics data, I did the pre-web analytics work. I conducted an interview and with sort of adopters of outcome mapping. These were people who were attending an outcome mapping training session, and so I saw them as people who had been through a decision process whereby they think that outcome mapping is useful and they're going to incorporate it into their work. So what brought them to this process? And this is sort of the motivation behind the interview. Essentially, in one way or another, they had heard about outcome mapping. So I found this to be the case with over half of the participants of this interview. They'd heard about outcome mapping. They did an internet search for information about outcome mapping, which led them to the outcomemapping.ca website, where they registered as a member, and ultimately decided to attend a training and learn more about outcome mapping. So that's the results of the interview. I also did a survey of the members of the outcome mapping online community. It's a resource for outcome mappers, of which 101 people responded to the survey. And of those people, 81 had searched for outcome mapping at some point in their lives, and 68 did so after first learning about outcome mapping, specifically in an attempt to learn more. This is really interesting because it represents a significant majority of the population. As they discover these new ideas, they hit the internet to find out more about that topic. And so based on this finding, we can look at these web statistics and infer a little bit more about what increases in web activity means about sort of the spread of these ideas. So having said that, let's look at some of the web findings then. We can look at ones related to interest. So interest in outcome mapping, and how can we describe that through web statistics? And in this particular case, we can see new visits to outcome mapping websites. So people who have visited the site who have never been there before. And we can notice a bit of a trend upwards in terms of the new visits to the website. It's sort of going up, especially initially. It's more leveled off recently. We can see dips for Christmas, but ultimately this allows us to track interest in this idea over time. We can also look at new member registrations to outcome mapping. So as new people register on the website, we can see the frequency with which they have registered. And this is, again, another increasing trend. As more people register, we can infer that more people have become aware of outcome mapping and are learning about it, and the idea is spreading around the world. So we can also look at offline activity as it's demonstrated through web statistics. And in this case, we're looking at, there was a workshop on outcome mapping during this time frame right here. And because of this workshop, there was a huge spike in interest to the website from the city in Vancouver, where the workshop was held. There was a large spike in activity to the site after the meeting. So which we can sort of infer that the meeting caused this spike in traffic. We can't say without a doubt, but I mean it's a pretty good guess at what has happened there. Again, we can look at regional interest in outcome mapping, just simply by the number of visits from a particular country. And in this case, Venezuela, there was a large spike in traffic to the website. So a lot of people seem to be talking about outcome mapping and visiting the website during this brief period here for about 3 months in the end of 2009. We can also look at the information ecology surrounding the idea. Specifically in social media, we can monitor what people are talking about in terms of blogs, microblogs, and various articles and images that people are putting on the web. And as they mention outcome mapping, we can see this in real time. And this can also be an indicator of interest in outcome mapping. We can map out the various groups of websites which cite or link to the outcome mapping community. So you'll notice outcome mapping community sort of in the middle, and then different groups of web pages represented by these different colored groups, as they also point to outcome mapping. So each dot points to outcome mapping, but the colored dots also point to each other. They also link to each other, which creates these subgroups. And from this analysis, we can infer sort of various development organizations, evaluation-related websites, and various social media and things like this, all surrounding the outcome mapping learning community. Okay, so those are some of the findings around outcome mapping on the internet. And moving along, we can bring this back for evaluators. What does this mean for evaluators? There are a whole other group of tools here that evaluators can use when they're conducting evaluations, especially evaluations of research or evaluations of ideas. We can look at search aggregation and what people are searching for online. We can look through server logs. We can use website analytics tools, such as Google Analytics. We can monitor social media, and we can use web crawlers to crawl the web for any mention of outcome mapping. These are really useful tools for getting a sense of what people are doing online. Right, but what this represents is really a new approach to research and evaluation, in that it's passive. The participants haven't agreed necessarily to participate in our study or provide us with data, but they're just conducting their normal activities online and leaving that data for someone to access. And it's up to us to just go and access that data where possible, and perform our own analysis. And so it's really passive in that sense. The other important aspect about it is that it allows us to look at the entire population. We can see data for everyone who is online. So instead of having a sample which represents the entire population, we're looking at the entire population, at least those of which who are online. And then finally, we can do a retrospective segmentation. So what I mean by that is that we don't necessarily need to have our questions up front, but we can have these tools just monitor and track all of the information on the internet, and we can go after the fact and ask questions about that data. Um, yeah, so there we go. That's a new approach to evaluation, and essentially the point is that these tools are not going to answer all questions for you. They're certainly not the solution to all your evaluation needs. However, they do provide you with another means of triangulation, another method to add to your basket, so that you can be more certain about the findings that you're coming to, whether it be evaluation or research. The more different methods you use, the more certain you can be about your findings. And so I present these tools sort of, you know, in the interest of triangulation. And so that's for evaluators. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. I'd like to thank you for listening and for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.